So this is a video I've wanted to make for a while. I've always kind of wanted to put a depth chart together, but now Steve Tandy has taken over and he's going to have a fresh start. I thought I would look at who he's going to be able to select and what type of depth Wales have at the moment. So I've basically gone through the entire list of positions and put them all together in the order of the players that I think he's going to want to pick from, and maybe some he might want to pick from in the future. So I'll pop them up there. It's quite long, so I'll try not to rattle on it and I'll get through them. So the first position is, of course, a loose head that I'm going to start with. The way I've kind of structured it is I've gone with the established players and then the squad players underneath them, and then anyone who might pop up throughout the season could potentially challenge for a squad position towards the end of the year or maybe halfway through. So I've gone with Nicky Smith and Gareth Thomas, pretty well established loose head pairing. Those two offer you two different things. Nicky Smith's kind of taken the role from Gareth Thomas as of late. Thomas was a favourite of Gatland, of course, but Smith's kind of superseded him recently. Then underneath that, you've got Kemsley Mathias. I think Gatland threw him in way too early, and I think it's detrimented him. Garen Phillips, who got called up by Matt Sherritt, was unused, but a good experience for him. Only 24, so still a lot of development to come. More games for the Ospreys starting we need from him next season to see if he can kick on. And then Corey Domachowski, who basically spent all last season injured. Very difficult season for him. But I think out of the second tier of players, I think Domachowski's probably the one with the most upside. Very active in the loose and a pretty decent scrummager. Just needs to be fit and have a run of games where he just gets his form back, and I think he'd be back amongst Wales, and I think he's got something to offer Wales as well. And then the guys at the bottom, I've gone with Rhys Barrett of Cardiff. In the small sample size that he played last year, he was very impressive, and I think if he can stay fit, he can get some game time, then we might see him develop pretty quick. He was part of the squad training, even though he wasn't in the squad. He was there training on the invitation of Ron Gatland. Then you got Danny Southworth. He had a really good season for Cardiff. Probably played a lot more than he was expecting. A former number 8, so he's got the loose skills, but his scrummaging was holding it pretty good. If he has another season like he did last year, he's going to be within the thoughts of the national coach. And then I put Rhys Carey. I don't think he's available. But it's a shame. Hopefully we can get him back in Wales or something. Maybe Tandy's can give him a ring and say, next contract, come back and I want you involved with Wales, because he would be very useful in that Wales squad. We haven't got a ball carrier quite like him. So, that would be good if we can get him back. Just for reference, if they've got a red dot with them, you might have worked out, but they play outside of Wales. And then, so moving on to hooker. We've got Dewi Lake. I've put a star next to him because I think the players that are top quality, I've put stars next to as we go through the list. So we've got Dewi Lake at the top, the clear head and shoulders above the rest. I still think even when Jack Morgan comes back that Dewi Lake should stay captain, but that's probably up for debate. And then you've got Elliot D, who I believe is the second best. Underneath them then you've got Ryan Elias, Liam Belcher and Evan Lloyd. Lloyd's the one with the most upside. Gatland's kind of project player. I think he will continue to come good. I think he took a big stride last season, and I think if he takes another similar stride this year, he'll be back in the squad. Very Dewi Lake-esque type player, but needs to work on that set piece. He's only played hooker about 3 or 4 years, so it's going to take time, that type of thing. Ryan Elias has been constantly in and out of the squad. Always had issues with the dart, but very good scrummager and good strong ball carrier. All these players offer a little bit something different, so it's kind of pick your poison with the third hooker. Then moving on to tight head, I think this is kind of a position of worry for us. Henry Thomas is the clear favourite, but I think he's been kind of inconsistent for Wales, although he's been pretty good for the Scarlets. Archie Griffin is the player with the most upside. I always say that. I just think he needs to move from Bath, because I'm not sure if he's ever going to get the game time that he really needs. Whether he comes back to a region or not, I'm not too sure, but somewhere where he's going to be guaranteed some more game time. Then Kieran Azarati is the third choice. Didn't cover himself in glory in Japan when he had a real good chance of putting down a marker for his position. And kind of a lot of people were a bit disappointed with him, and I was one of them, to be honest. And I've defended him quite a lot, but I thought he was really poor in the summer, so taking a step back there. Then underneath there, it kind of shows that there's like an issue with this position, because you've got Ben Warren, Reece Henry, Dylan Lewis, Harry O'Connor, who's been injured all season, Sam Wainwright, Chris Coleman got his first cap this summer, Will Griff-John. None of those are like you're looking at them and thinking he's going to be the guy that comes in and really pushes to start. They're all kind of like maybe depth pieces. You could potentially see maybe a Warren or a Reece Henry or maybe even a Harry O'Connor in the future developing, but I don't know. We've not really seen anything from them quite yet that makes you say that they're going to be the answer to tight end in the future. On the bottom then, we've got Sam Scott and Tom Francis. Tom Francis, I can't see him coming back at 33. Is there much point? He was already kind of on the decline. I know a lot of Welsh fans think that he should come back, but I think leave him where he was. If he was going to come back and he was going to affect things, it would have been by now, and I think the longer it goes, the less likely it's going to be. The biggest hope for me is Sam Scott. Not too much pressure on him, but 19, playing over in Bristol, under 20s, but he's got a lot of promise. He's a big guy, can scrummage, can get around the park, but it's going to take a long time to develop in that position. Such a difficult position to learn and get better at. So long time before we see the likes of him, but we're desperate in that spot, so you never know, he could be fast tracked. Second row is actually position of depth. You got Dav Jenkins and Adam Beard, probably the top ones, and then really close underneath those you got Will Rowlands, Teddy Williams, Ben Carter and Freddie Thomas. Sort of any one of those group of 6 probably could make a combination and it'd be a pretty good one. To be fair, there's a fair bit of depth in there. I'm not worried about second row. Second row was been a kind of problem position for a while, but recently there's been a lot of decent second rows coming through. I think Dav Jenkins is head and shoulders above the rest of them. No disrespect to him, but I think he really is the one top quality player in that Boyle house, and then the rest are good pieces to go around him. So, he's 22. It feels like he's been around for ages, but just shows how good he is and how good he's been at a young age. Then kind of the tier under those, you've got Rhys Davis, who's really struggled with injuries. James Ratty, who did all right in the summer when he came in. James Fender, 24, so he's young. Jake Ball coming back to the Scarlets. Be interesting to see what happens there, if he can rekindle some of that stuff that we saw before he sort of left for Japan. He's kind of that enforcer that we don't really have that type of player. And then Chris Chinza, still only 23, so it kind of feels like everyone's given up on Chinza, but still 23. And I do think second row is his best position, but he doesn't play there for Exeter, so it's kind of hard to judge. And then the back row, look at all those names there. It's just an absolute wealth to pick from. The main guys I've gone with: Tane Plumtree, Alex Mann, Jack Morgan, Josh McLeod, Tommy Raphael, Aaron Wainwright, Toby Faletau. You could pick a back row with any 3 of those, and you would have a really good back row. Obviously, Faletau and Morgan stand out above everyone, and then who you play sort of alongside them. But Toby, the day he goes, I'll be absolutely devastated. Absolutely love him. In my opinion, top 3 best Welsh players in the professional era without a question. But Wainwright behind him has got a lot of experience, still got plenty of lead in the pencil. So there's a good succession line with Plumtree as well, who can play a lot of 8. So the succession is there, but no one will beat Faletau. But any one of those 3, as I said, out of that group can really come in and make a good back row. And then under them, you got James Botham, Morgan Morse, and Tame Basham. Again, plug and play any of those, and they're not going to let you down. Morgan Morse, we hoped we would have seen him in the squad in the summer, but there's no doubt to me that we're going to see him in the autumn or in the Six Nations. You just can't ignore him, the way he plays. And then underneath, then you got a lot of other good players. Harry Deeves, Morgan Morris still gets a lot of talk from Ospreys fans, particularly. Ollie Cracknell, Alan Lawrence, top tackler, one of the top carriers in the league last year. Mackenzie Martin going to the Dragons to try and re-get some more game time. And Ross Moriarty coming back from the Ospreys. Can we see him maybe back in the Wales reckoning at 31? He's maybe still got a little bit to give. Maybe that type of player that we kind of need. Before I move on to the backs, I just want to ask, because I never do, please subscribe if you don't. I'm really close to 3,000 now, which would be a massive milestone for me, and I would love it. And I never ask for people to subscribe, so if you do watch it, please subscribe, and I'll move on after that shameless plug to the backs and scrum half. So Thomas Williams, obviously the top dog there, and given that he was on the Lions, there was opportunities for the next guy underneath. Kieran Hardy was the guy who got the sort of nod and really took a lot of flack because he was pretty poor, to be honest, during the 2 games. So I think he's kind of fallen down the pecking order, which is kind of kicked Ruben Morgan-Williams up the pecking order, who I think should have had at least 5 to 10 caps by now. Why Gatland didn't like him, I don't know. But I think he's still got something to offer the Wales team, and I think he's going to be really looking to back up Thomas Williams when Thomas Williams comes back. Rod Williams, of course, the veteran campaigner there, won't let you down, but maybe time to move on from him. And then Ellis Bevan, the next guy, had a kind of a little bit of a shock opportunity, not last summer, but the summer before in Australia, and actually did really well. But he's just fallen so far down the pecking order at Cardiff. He's like 3rd choice. So unless he's getting game time and starts getting himself back up that pecking order, he's never going to get in the Wales reckoning at the moment. Outside half, problem position for us still, I think, even though Edwards looked pretty good in that second test in the summer. Still very young, still going to be raw, still going to need a lot of developing. Defensively, he does worry me, although he's excellent at every other facet of the game. So be interesting if they can maybe do some stuff defensively to hide him or help him out a bit. Then Sam Costello's kind of the guy who's going to be battling with him. A lot of people not impressed with Costello. I've given him a lot of grace, but I think maybe the summer he kind of proved everyone and a lot of the doubters right, that maybe he just doesn't have what it takes at the international level. I'm not too sure. And underneath this is kind of interesting. You got Sam Davis. As far as I know, he's available. I saw an interview from him saying he is available for Wales if they want him. Why they haven't had a look at him, I'm not sure. He is 31, so maybe not an awful lot of chances to get back in the squad, but I would have a look at him. Unfortunately, did end the season with a really bad injury. Had to have an operation recently. I think he said he's targeting a November return, so gonna miss the autumn, but maybe the next year's Six Nations. Experienced guy again, had a few caps, but being around the block and doing well out in Grenoble, so maybe getting him in the squad. And then underneath that, we got Jared Evans, who seems to have not really been given an opportunity by whoever's been in charge, mainly Gatland. Bits and pieces come in and out of squads. I don't know. I'd like to see Jared have a good run, and I think he's probably the most attacking threat-wise outside half we have out of everyone. But then you could also say that about Ioan Lloyd. Gone to Cardiff now. Is he going to be playing outside half? Is he going to be playing fullback or on the wing? It's hard to know until the season starts. I've always said I don't really think he's an outside half, but maybe he goes to Cardiff and maybe Matt Sherritt can develop him. Matt Sherritt was an outside half, so maybe working closely with him, he can change the way he approaches the game a bit, and he starts to play a bit more pragmatic because he's very attacking and he's very good at breaking tackles and stuff like that, but controlling the game is his biggest weakness, and you have to have that at outside half. Then you got Sheedy, who finished the season really well. I could see him getting called up. Needs to sort out the goal kicking. Gareth Anscombe, I think his international career is done now. 34, injuries have just plagued him towards the end of his career. He didn't look himself when he did play recently for Wales, so I think maybe just thanks for your service and enjoy finishing your career wherever you play. And then maybe Angus O'Brien, I thought looked okay when he got over his injury for the Dragons this year. Massive howitzer of a boot. Not the most natural outside half, plays a lot of fullback as well, so I don't really see him being an option, but you never know, he is there as a more veteran player. Moving on to the centres then, this was kind of a real interesting spot because We've got Ben Thomas, Johnny Williams, Owen Watkin, Joe Hawkins, Max Llewellyn, Joe Roberts, and Mason Grady as the main guys. Either one of them could make a centre partnership with the other. And then the sort of group underneath, you got Eddie James, Kieran Williams, and Aaron Owen, maybe, Nick Tompkins, and even Louis Hennessy of Bath if he can get more consistent game time. But when you look, I put black dots next to the actual players who are outside centres, and there's only 3 out of maybe 12 players there. The only one, and you can argue that Mason Grady is better on the wing. A lot of people would. I think he might have to play a fair bit in 13 for Cardiff, seeing as Ray Lilo's retired. But Joe Roberts is mainly the only out and out 13 in that entire group of players. We've seen Max Llewellyn play there, and he's done a good job, but he's naturally a 12, mainly plays on the wing for Gloucester. Johnny Williams did it in the summer, did okay, but was kind of anonymous and made a couple of 1 or 2 defensive misreads. It's really concerning that we're not seeming to develop 13s. I'm not sure what it is, but we've got loads of good 12s. So developing and finding a partnership is going to be really crucial for Steve Tandy. We need to nail down a partnership. The amount of centre partnerships that have been over the last 2 or 3 years is actually insane, in the amount of combos we've tried out. And no one's really put a partnership together since Tompkins and North. And that was only for about a season where those two really played a lot together. So what's going to happen, I don't know. We've seen a lot of Ben Thomas and Max Llewellyn, which I kind of like that partnership. There's a lot of familiarity between those two. The partnership I would love to see is Joe Hawkins and Mason Grady. We did see it about 2 years ago when they were literally just coming onto the scene. And they were just probably way too inexperienced to be doing that. I think it was out in Italy. So I'd like to see that partnership get a chance to develop. Whether Tandy is going to go there, and if he is, I don't know, but maybe put some time. They need to figure out who they want as a partnership early and just stick with them and go through the struggles and the highs and the lows of forming a partnership and working through it, because it can't keep chopping and changing the way it is. It's not worked, and we need to find a trusted combo. And then moving on to the wings, people will probably disagree that I still think Josh Adams is a top quality player. He showed in his glimpses in Japan, whenever he was involved, he picked the right option. He made inroads into the game and made big contributions in everything he did. It's just been a problem with fitness. Maybe at 30, he's always going to have those problems now, and I hope that's not true. But I still think he's top quality, and I still think he's one of our best backs. And then you got ILRZ coming back. News with this week that he's joining Bristol. It's a good move for him and for Bristol and for Wales. I think just up the M4, so he's going to be straight back in the reckoning for Wales. For me, there's no question. Even if you don't want to play him straight away, he's got to be in that squad and in and around the boys. Then you got Tom Rogers, who's been kind of like a revelation over the last 6 months, maybe. His play for Wales has been real impressive. He's always showed promise, but never been really consistent. But the last 6 months to a year, he's been pretty good whenever he's put on a Wales jersey. So I'll be interested to see what type of back three Steve Tandy does go for, because it's going to be hard to drop Tom Rogers if that is the case. And then underneath that, I've gone with Max Page. Max Page gets a lot of talk at 13. I always say he's a winger for me. You can disagree with that in the comments if you like. But I think he, again, is going to start to be impossible to ignore if he has another season like he did last year. Where he'll play for the Scarlets, I don't know, but my guess would be majority on the wing. Ellis Mee burst onto the scene in the Six Nations, kind of fizzled out, but has still been pretty consistent for the Scarlets, so we'll see more of him, no doubt. Rio Dai is a funny one. I think Rio Dai unfortunately suffers because he plays for the Dragons. He had a good introduction to international rugby, scored quite a few tries, and then when Wales were bad, he was sometimes part of the reason defensively. He had issues, and maybe just not being on it all the time. But I think there is still a quality player in there, and I do think we'll see Rio Dyer play for Wales again and have a positive contribution. He just needs to get some form back. Maybe if it takes leaving the Dragons, I don't know. But yeah, he's a good player, and he's still only 25, and he'll learn. He's going to be one of the senior players down at the Dragons now, so it'll be interesting to see what happens from there. Giles got his cap and did okay, but I don't see him being a long-term thing. Josh Hathaway's a funny one. He's always kind of been in and around squads, but never really got an opportunity to play. Whether that happens, very young still. Seems to score a lot of tries for Gloucester. Never really gets a chance with Wales. And then underneath that, you've got Theo Cabango's just been injured constantly. Maybe it's the fact that he's just really undersized. I don't know. But again, basically spent the whole season injured. But when he has played, he's looked so threatening with the ball in his hands. Very sort of like Shane Williams-esque. Harry Rees-Weldon is an interesting one for me. Played really well for the under-20s. And then he finished the season doing well for the Dragons as well, in what was, in a constant losing effort, and then ended up getting injured also to finish the season, so didn't go in the under-20s World Cup. But I think we'll see probably a fair bit of him for the Dragons this season, and I will be interested to see how he kicks on. A really good player he is. I think he will score tries if you get the ball in his hands. And then I put Harry Millard in there because finished the URC season joint top try scorer, had an excellent season for Cardiff. People might say he's not international quality, but I put him in the list because I like him, I rate him, and I support Cardiff. So that's why I put him in there, to be honest. But I think he deserves to be. Top try scorer in the URC is nothing to turn your nose at when you look at the calibre of player that plays in the URC, let's be honest. And then fullback to finish it off, we've got Blair Murray is the main one at the moment. Cam Winnett's just underneath him. Liam Williams is an interesting one for me. Kind of out in the wilderness, unattached to the club since he got injured in the Six Nations and then released by Saracens. Been training in Cardiff, as I said. Will he sign for Cardiff? I don't know. I think he probably should just sign for a region because it doesn't seem like there's the appetite for him or out there. Maybe his wage demands are too high. The fact that he's got to train with Cardiff just to have someone to train for shows that the demand for his services isn't necessarily there. That's no disrespect to him. Maybe they're waiting to see if his fitness comes through. But if he's available and he's playing, then I think he's probably going to be in the squad. Experienced player, showed still, even at his age, that he can still give contributions, useful contributions when he's on the pitch. So he'll be in and around the squad if he's playing. Hugh Anderson's a player I really like for the Dragons. I think he's got a bright future ahead. Showed glimpses of real attacking prowess, and I think he's going to have a breakout season this year. I guess you could say the season he just had might have been his breakout, but consistently now we want to see him playing fullback for the Dragons and giving big contributions like he did occasionally last year. And then underneath them, you've got Kai Evans, who's spent a lot of time injured, kind of had a couple of opportunities from Gatland, but hasn't really kicked on, mainly due to fitness. Jacob Beetham's another one who's just struggled so much with his fitness, but he's got all the attributes. I'd like to see Beetham play in the centre, personally, but whether they'll try and convert him or not, I'm not sure, because he can play a bit of 10, bit of fullback, has played 12. Be interesting to see what they do with him. Max Nagy's one that was a bit of a hot property a year or so ago. He's dealt with injuries, but kind of been ousted by Jack Walsh. And Jack Walsh has been superb. And I put Jack Walsh's name on here. He is not available for us because he is Australian. But I think in 2 years, he qualifies for residency. And if he's still here then and he wants to play for Wales, slap him up, because he's been an excellent signing for the Ospreys. And since he's been playing fullback, he's been absolutely superb. Very rarely puts a foot wrong. Not a big guy, but seems to break a lot of tackles. Had a couple of shots at goal where the game's on the line and nailed them. So, get him in if he's available. So then I kind of looked at all the players. So we've got roughly 94 available for Steve Tandy. If you feel like I've left someone out, let me know. I'm sure I have. But that's the basic players I think that he needs to look at. Out of the 94, 21 of those are outside of England, which doesn't sound like so much, but it's a lot of the main players, unfortunately. And then out of the 94, I've got 8 are top quality, which is kind of the problem. When I said on my community page and on Instagram I was going to do a depth chart, that's not a good idea for a video. Quite a few of the comments was there is no depth, which I disagree with, as we've seen going through these position groups. There's a lot of depth, but there's just maybe not a lot of top quality, world class, game winners. We've got some young talent coming through, so let's hope Steve Tandy's the right man to nurture it through, take Wales forward. Let me know what you think about this video, and if there's anyone I've left out, please let me know. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of it, and I will catch you on the next one.